Hello friends, and welcome to Figure Study, where I'm finally taking a look at the big old bar of space soap that is Transformers Studio Series Scourge. Kind of funny, but also very on brand for me that I've actually had Scourge here for quite a while, and I think I actually got him when he was still relatively new and not super easy to find, and I'm just now making a video on him. But it's Scourge. He is a space boat, and he looks convincing for what he is. I'm not super fond of the weapon storage. I wish that it could go like underneath or something, or store in all of this somewhere, but it really can't. You just have to use the peg on the side of the gun to peg onto the side of the vehicle, and that doesn't look great. So typically I leave it off to the side. Now this is weird because I never really cared about Scourge. I don't know. For some reason, like I had no interest at all in the Titans Return version of Scourge. I thought the X-Transbots version of Scourge looked kind of neat, but just didn't want to spend the money on something like that because I do not care enough about Scourge for a Masterpiece style figure. But this actually really appealed to me. I don't know why. It's just something about the sleekness and like the two-tone blue for the vehicle mode that I think is really neat. I like how it's designed in a way that when you put it down on a surface, when you're looking at it from slight angles, it kind of looks like it's hovering, which is neat. I like the big Decepticon logo right in the front there, just stands out pretty nicely. I just think it's a nifty design for this specific toy. Scourge's overall design is a little weird, but I think this design is neat. In terms of the coloration, like I said, it's basically just two-tone blue. You've got the darker blue, the lighter blue, and that's about it. You have a teeny tiny bit of red in the front of that middle engine, whatever these are, and then of course the Decepticon logo, but that's pretty much it. All the other color for this guy shows up in robot mode, and it's not much. But weirdly, it doesn't bother me. Normally, that kind of a limited color palette does bother me, but here, no, I think it works. There's something about the way they distributed the color with like this lighter blue just kind of going around the outside and then acting as like accents on the engines, and everything else is in this darker blue that just works for me. It's got a nice shape. It looks, you've got some obvious robot stuff when you look at it from the underside, but I think overall it's relatively clean, relatively effective. In terms of size, it's about Voyager-ish size, I guess. It seems a little small next to Cyclonus, but Cyclonus distributes his mass a lot differently. Scourge's transformation is interesting in that it's a little bit complex when it comes to situating the wings and unpeeling the obvious shell, but most of the intense engineering involves the backpack and the torso. The arms and the legs themselves are actually barely transformed at all. They just kind of reorient themselves and get wrapped up in the rest of the shell. But it's really effective. It's relatively satisfying to do, and I really like how the torso section kind of reshapes itself. Like, it's a simple step, but it's just something really satisfying about how you get the torso to thin out and you move the bulk of the upper body and arms down towards the lower body, like below the waist, which allows it to work a little bit better with that tapered shape of the front of the vehicle mode. And the way the back accordions up to both reveal the head and kind of tuck most of the kibble, well, not most of the kibble, but some of the kibble into the torso is really clever. And also I really appreciate how the sides of the vehicle that become the wings actually tab over the accordion section that's sitting in the torso to help lock everything together. So it's actually a really solid robot mode, and it was a solid vehicle mode too. And what we're left with is a Scourge that, at least from the front, looks pretty darn good. I mean, clearly you spin him around to the back and there's a lot of his vehicle mode just hanging off there, in particular these kind of extra flaps that just sit off to the sides here. That would have been nice if those could have folded up a little bit more, but, you know, it's a mainline, non-masterpiece figure. And again, from the front, it doesn't look bad. With a few exceptions, he is pretty much the same color scheme that we saw in the vehicle mode, where it's the darker blue and the lighter blue, though the distribution here is a lot more spread out. And you do get a bit more color here. Like in the torso, you've got that darker blue. There is, of course, the pink nails. There's a little bit of like a reddish purpley color on the insides of the shoulders. And then, of course, there's the head with the gray face, the black beard, the nice shiny metallic eyes, and then the little engine turbine thing at the top. Oh, and I almost missed it, but there is some of that reddish purpley color on the insides of the ankle peg holes too. Seems like kind of a strange detail to color, but at the same time, it's Scourge. I feel like they kind of hit all the main colors that they needed to hit anyway, so why not use the paint elsewhere? And yeah, it's just a very Scourgy looking Scourge. He's got the bat looking wings, he's got the very rounded upper body. And they do a decent enough job with the molding and some of the added detail, because clearly they added some extra molded bits than what we'd see in like the cartoon, but they did a good job of hiding some of the hinges, like the way that the torso breaks apart. You can see the lines, but because of all the other molding that's going on in the torso, they don't stand out that much. Looking at that head, it's a very, very Scourge head. I mean, how many Transformers are there with a beard and goatee, right? But this looks like Scourge to me, and it looks really good. I like the kind of blue boxy head with the front-facing traffic cone on top. I don't know. I like that they did the gray for the face and then also black for the beard, because it just helps to set that beard apart. Even just a little bit of red at the tip of that head cone thing looks really good. And I do appreciate that they kept the weird vampiric popped collar too. I don't know, I think this is just a really nicely designed Scourge. As far as articulation goes, the head is on a ball joint, so you can do the look left and right. You can look up and down slightly, but you can get an okay amount of left and right tilt. The arms can rotate 360, but the wing bits get in the way. You can move the wing bits back a bit. The outward motion of the arms is extremely good because of the transformation. You get a bicep rotation, a 90-degree elbow. You do get wrist rotation, but the wrist on the left hand, the one with the open fingers, is really tight on mine for some reason. It does rotate, it just puts up a fight. You get a full 360-degree rotation on the waist. The legs can go forward, not quite 90, and then back they start to bang into the wing kibble, but if you move some of that out of the way, you can get them back almost 90. They can go out, not quite 90, but pretty close. You get a thigh rotation, which is limited due to the structure of the hips. There's a 90-degree knee bend, which I feel like they totally could have molded it a different way to make it bend further, but it's fine. You can move the toe down for transformation if you want, and there is a bit of ankle tilt. I don't feel like it's a problem per se, because I'm not generally all that interested in putting Scourge in extremely dynamic poses, but it could be better. And then the gun, you can peg it into the peg holes on the backs of his wing kibble to store it, I guess. You can peg it into his shoulder, peg it into his forearm, peg it into his ankle, or you can do what you probably should do and just put it in his hand. And the gun looks fine. I know there are some people who are disappointed that he doesn't come with a target master. I really don't care. Yeah, he's a good-looking Scourge. Something about the cleanness of his underlying robot mode. Like, yeah, there's the wing kibble on the back, but like, ignoring that, something about just the cleanness of his actual humanoid robot shape, not counting the wings, that I really appreciate. I don't know, it's hard to explain. Now, size-wise, he is a Voyager, so he is taller than a Deluxe, though he's not that much taller than a tall Deluxe. He is taller than Spinister, but not to an enormous degree. And of course, he's shorter compared to a very tall Voyager, so there's that. But they do look good together. And that is going to do it for Studio Series 86, whatever his number is, Scourge. And this is Scourge, not the Sweep. As far as I understand it, the way to tell them apart is the Sweep has the open right hand as opposed to the open left hand. I think that's what it is. I actually really like this figure. Even though I don't care about Scourge at all in any capacity, I actually really like this figure. Something about the transformation is just really interesting to me, and I like that even though it's a shell former, they do some interesting stuff with the shell, and it's kind of like, what else are you going to do with it, you know? And for the price point for a mainline figure, I feel like they did an incredibly good job with it. But that is enough of what I think about Scourge. What do you all think about Scourge? So he has had a few official figures. I've talked long enough though, so yes, thank you everybody for watching. If you like this video, even though it's not very good, or any of the other videos that I've done, and want to support the channel outside of watching the video in the first place, I do have a Patreon. It's a single $1 tier, gets you early access to new videos, access to the occasional behind-the-scenes posts that I might make, and like some work-in-progress stuff if I'm working on customs. And eventually I hope to do polls, so patrons will be able to weigh in on potential channel stuff. But with all that out of the way, thank you everybody for watching, and remember, art is more than meets the eye.